Welcome to Ladies in Law, where real-world advice meets professional wisdom and empowerment in realms of law and business. Your hosts, Lisa Goucher, Dawn Smith, and Kellye Raymond, bring you innovative strategies, practical guidance, and inspirational stories. Join us as we inspire and support women to thrive in traditionally male-dominated fields. We're here to promote inclusivity and provide practical advice for success. Hi, Lisa here. Today, of course, I have Dawn and Kellye, but more importantly, we have a special guest. We are so excited to introduce JoDee Neil. She is Chief of Crimes Against Children in Grayson County, and I'm going to turn it over to you, JoDee. Would you please just start by talking about how you ended up in this amazing position that is making such a difference in the public sector? And two, I think it's important that we hear some of your backstory as well, where you were, where you're going.
We are so excited. We're so excited you're here too, JoDee. We've been trying to set this up for quite a while, and we're just so excited to hear where you are now and how you got there. So thanks for being on.
Thanks so much for having me. I just adore all three of you who have been my friends for a long time now, it seems. And I love the work that you're doing on this production, and you're focusing on the right women and, all the important things that we need to really talk about. Okay, so I am the Chief of Crimes Against Children in the Grayson County District Attorney's Office. How did I get here? A newly elected district attorney named John Kermit Hill and his first assistant, Britton Brooks, recruited me to come in and do this job. Kermit was elected in November, and Britton Brooks I'd known since I was an assistant DA the first time around. He worked in Collin County for a little while with me, and I guess he had seen me try some cases, and maybe he shed a tear or two. And when he heard that I was in between gigs and not really, when he heard that I was in between gigs, he called me up, and they put a pretty hard sell on, and the offer was so good, I really couldn't refuse it. And what made the offer good was that the division had never existed before. And so I am actually building something completely new from scratch that has been proven to be effective in other counties who have this sort of trial division. Dallas has one. I worked in Collin County. Tarrant has one. Denton has one. I think most of the really developed district attorney's offices have crimes against children divisions, because they're absolutely necessary for the prosecution of the worst crimes in Texas.
Yeah, that's
so.
Sorry, go ahead.
My background, I shared a little bit of that. I was a prosecutor right out of law school from 2005 to 2011. And I didn't ask to be assigned to crimes against children. I was assigned. I was 27, and I had tried a lot of cases because I was just one of those that tried cases. But they put me in the division, and I mean, what was I supposed to do? Fail or quit? No, I mean, you just figure it out. And so I was really lucky that I was with some senior attorneys who were happy to train me, and she did. And I've spoken about her on other appearances before. Her name's Michelle Voren. I call her my mommy lawyer. And she and a good handful of others really took me under their wing and invested a lot of energy showing me how to do these cases. And I just did them. I did rocket docket. So I was basically, one year I tried 20 of these, which is a ton. I just kind of went back to back, and most of them are sex abuse of children, but there's also injury to a child. And so I handle the injury cases where the injury is significant and the child is under 6. And then, and that's even in current prosecution as we're setting up our parameters. And then child sexual abuse, I take all of those. So that's how I got there.
JoDee, that's amazing.
I've worked on, usually, unfortunately, on the defense side of those cases. But those are tough cases. Before you got back to the public sector, we met because you were a plaintiff's lawyer. And you're still representing victims, right? And I think that you've represented victims your entire career.
Yeah.
Kind of tell us how it is one of the things that we've talked about on the podcast before, and something that we are always thinking about is how do we kind of protect our own peace when you have to just live in really, really, terrible fact scenarios, that they're not just fact scenarios. It's not just a case. It's people's lives. Tell us how you kind of compartmentalize and how you cope and deal with just the nature of the cases that you're working on.
I love that you asked that, because it is really important for all the professionals who do this job, which in my opinion, the detectives, the investigators, everyone who's involved in crimes against children should get some sort of like Purple Heart, because it is hard and it is really hazard pay. It affected me the first time around pretty severely. And, I continued to work through it as I was living overseas in Singapore, and I did consulting for international nonprofits in the child protection space. That I was sort of set aside from it, though, in that way. I wasn't working directly with the people, and I didn't have to see any images or videos. Then in the civil sector, I did some sexual abuse cases, sexual misconduct, but it was all really mild compared to what I've stepped into now. I was not really prepared for the advances in technology that have yielded the most filthy, evil materials. Some people call them child porn. I can't use that. I mean, it's child rape on video. So that is the kind of stuff where I'm really, really still figuring out my path to do that work, because someone has to confirm that the file works, that we have the materials that we're going to allege in the indictment, that the materials are what they say they are. Like, someone has to do basic due diligence, and that person is me. And so in terms of protecting my peace, I actually wrote a poem the other day, like a prayer, so I could read it and sort of ask that my eyes glaze over, and that I can look at the materials without feeling terrified and full of rage and just wanting to cry. Yeah. Also, myself from being haunted, because those are the sort of images that pop into your head as a PTSD, like an intrusive memory. And, sometimes I have to shake my head to make it go away. So, taking really concrete steps to process it quickly instead of putting it off is what I'm really focusing on now. And I'm writing a book that's helping with that too, and there's a lot of synchronicity between the work I'm doing now and the book that I'm writing. So that's how I'm protecting my peace, but it ain't easy.
No, you've got to have a game plan. And I think that's what a trap a lot of lawyers fall into. They just kind of think like, I'm tough, I'm just going to keep slogging through, and I'm going to compartmentalize. And if you're not really kind of actively doing that, it's very hard for it to happen naturally.
Really, there should be some sort of qualifier. It hurts my heart to think that all these wonderful prosecutors I'm now working with, who had these cases before, had to look at this stuff. I'm like, we should be screening people. We should be preparing people. We need to have more check-ins like you're doing with me now. Like, are you okay? I do that with the detectives I work with. I'm like, I don't want you looking at any more of this than you need to. I just need to know what it's there. I'll take the file names. Anything interesting, I'm happy to note. But you don't need to be looking at every movie in this guy's collection. I don't need that, because I don't need to indict that many counts. So, protect yourself. I'm trying to get the message through to everybody.
And have they been receptive as far as the courthouse? I bet they see you as a blessing coming in to take on the worst of the worst cases involving children. Like JoDee, I'm just sure they're like so thankful you're there.
Some are, Grayson County, it is it used to be rural, and it is very much in between, basically, being the next Collin County, because it's right there. I mean, it's not like crime stops at the county line. It's right there. And, the county has a lot of needs to fulfill, and doesn't really have the tax base for it yet. So I think some people are excited, especially, all my colleagues in the DA's office are very supportive. But I'm still kind of sussing out how supportive the county is, and others that control the purse strings. So hopefully it goes well.
Well,
And-
JoDee, I know you have 2 daughters too. I have kids, and I know when I did some child sexual abuse cases when I first started practicing, I was handling them, the first probably 10 years that I was practicing, and mine were littles then. They were, babies, and it totally changed how I parented, about letting them do certain things. How do you balance that with your daughters? Because are they 12? How old are they?
Almost 10 and 8.
10 and 8. 10 and 8.
First of all, they love it that I'm a lawyer for kids. Like,
Yeah.
they're proud of me, and that fills me up. I can never feel like it's for nothing, or that the job's too big or impossible for me to make a difference. I just can't go there. I have to believe that, it's worth it. We're going to make a systemic change, and that it's worth it to my daughters even. But to answer your question, it is very different doing these cases as a mommy now than it was when I was single with no kids in my 20s.
Yeah.
I could not have been prepared for the real psychological trick of, like, I was looking at a horrible child, assault on video. That's what I'm calling them. And I saw my daughter, and I was like, no, that's not her. It's okay. But it was really upsetting. I hadn't planned on that happening. I really had no warning, but it happened. And then another detective told me that he had to leave the division because he saw his kid in the video. And I was like, oh my God, that just happened to me. And I guess it's common for parents. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm really trying to understand what this phenomenon is. Because it's nothing that I've read about before. Like, Body Keeps the Score doesn't quite address this.
No, absolutely not. I don't think that.
I mean, that's a good book for anybody that
it is.
Read it. Body Keeps the
It is
Score,
a great book.
Revolutionized. Really confirmed everything that I already knew.
Yeah.
Well, I'm writing that one down.
No, it's really good, Lisa. It's really good. I mean, it makes so much sense when you're reading it. You're just like, oh, okay. I think that we're getting to a point where we're doing a little bit better as lawyers, connecting kind of all of the trauma and stress that we experience and how that manifests on a daily basis in our bodies, in our lives, in our relationships. And I think before, at least with me, I just kind of put all that to the side and just said, it's okay. I'm a lawyer. I'm tough. I'm fine. I just think that there has to be this continual growth when it comes to really learning about the impact and dealing with it and telling others that it's okay to feel that impact and deal with it. So you have to be going through that now, just kind of getting back in the swing of things with that. What do you do to kind of keep yourself healthy and keep yourself focused with everything that you're doing, because you've done so many amazing things. So tell us how you've been a successful mom and balanced all of the great things that you've done for so many different litigants and now these children.
I am divorced. I share custody of my kids. I'm a single mom, and I've really tried to get them more. I find I do a lot better when I actually am with my child. They're grounding me, and they're helping me reconnect to what I'm fighting for, which is for all the kids to have this magical, great childhood. My kids have a great childhood. They are not overcoming trauma. And when you think about humanity's advancement, the key is going to be having more children who are not overcoming trauma, so that they're not having to spend their entire, life until they're 40 figuring out what happened to them. They can move forward with their skills and talents and cure cancer or put a man on Mars or whatever it is. So, it is beautiful to be around my kids and to keep that meditation inside of me where I want that so much for all the other children. Connecting with my kids has absolutely been my survival. Oddly, the drive to Sherman is helping me.
Really?
Like, I turn on my music, I have my coffee, and I sort of prepare myself for what horrors I'm about to behold. I love to do yard work now at my lake house, and I have a big old machete, and man, I'll just start hacking and
Little
clearing
physical release never hurt anybody.
Yeah, and then you can burn it, and then you can just stare into the fire, and hardly anything matters when you're just staring into a fire. It's really therapeutic. I'm getting outside more, especially out here at the lake, making the kids get outside. We like to go fossil hunting. And then, it is always, even though it's hard, it is the greatest honor to actually meet the kid that you have in your case and to have them trust you with all of what they've survived and to be that person that says, you know what, it's going to be all right. Well, you got one job, tell the truth. Me and you, I got you in this courtroom. All the fear of the unknown. We got this. Take them up to the courtroom, show them around the office. And you can start to see the trauma letting. That's what I call it. It's like a balloon. You kind of let the helium out. You can kind of see the trauma letting out. So these are the things that I've been doing for the past couple months that have kept me from walking out the door, which I've been close to doing a couple times.
I bet. Well, is this kind of I don't know, a stepping stone maybe to more in politics? Or I know that you've always been very active in politics. You've been amazing in supporting so many great folks running for office here in Texas and nationally. So are you still really involved in politics, or are you wanting to maybe run for office at some point?
Man, I have no idea. I will say I no longer have the energy to concern myself with things that I cannot control. So, in my casework, I know, okay, I have this file and I have this perpetrator and, these facts and my kid, and this is up, I can control this. When you look at the political landscape, what was I thinking? Like, I couldn't control any of that. I tried,
and a fool's errand.
I work for a Republican now, and, up here, all my neighbors are Republicans, and I find that at the end of the day, none of it really matters because we really care about the same things. When I talk about my job to my neighbors across the way, they're just as horrified as you are when I'm telling you what happened. And if you really cut through the smoke and mirrors, we're all here for the same thing. And, I don't know. I guess if, people want to elect me at some point, but that's not really something I'm going for. What I'm doing right now is I'm writing a book, and I'm really trying to get front and center the pain that people have survived and lived through, but can't say. My book is called Outcry Witness, and it's really addressing the feeling of being frozen and not being able to disclose the truth about what's happened to you for any number of reasons. And even that book, and I have a ghostwriter, and it's a significant expense on my end, but it is so important to start releasing this from humanity because it's keeping me from getting jurors that I need, cooperating witnesses that I need. The time from the judges. I mean, everyone acts like, I don't want to hear it. Well, guess what? You're about to, because I'm going to start telling everyone how. And we're all going to get it out. And then we're going to play the field as it lies, because then we'll just be dealing with the truth and not hiding from everything.
That's a big job.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a really big job. And something you said a moment ago regarding the politics, JoDee. I don't know if you know Susan Hawk, but we had her on our podcast. And, she said the same thing that you just said, that once she got into office as the first female DA, it was like there were things that she could control from the law perspective on things that she needed to do. But the politics was what really just sent her in a direction that was like, and then now you're saying the same thing. It's like you can't control any of that. So it really just resonated with me. The same message. You started going through that process. She went through that process. And not that I would ever go for politics, but I'm just like, absolutely not.
She's such an inspiration. I see her on LinkedIn and I'm like, I love all of her messaging. I love her materials. And I love, she made a big comeback because
yes, most definitely.
That was a tough sitch for her. And I feel for her and I'm so proud of the way she's rallied,
Yeah.
But it's true. And honestly, I feel like if we could, the real common denominator is kids. If we could literally focus on an agenda that is kids first, where we're all sincerely working it through, plans and strategies and budget items for kids, our entire country would be different. It could be different tomorrow if we just decided to make the change.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I guess that's kind of why we, all of us kind of come together in this venture, this ladies-in-law venture, to figure out how we can get a consistent message to help with that. Just help people just kind of be authentic, be themselves, try to learn and grow as much as possible. And we're just so grateful. We've had some folks on like Susan Hawk and like you that have been able to talk to our listeners about just how you've gotten to where you are. I know that you've gone through quite a bit, transitioning from civil to criminal. Just talk to us about resilience. Talk to us about, finding the right path for you, and really kind of leaning into that like you have.
Oh man, I was about to leave the law. I got an interview. I was very excited. I interviewed at JP Morgan to become a private banker because I was pretty convinced that the money in law is no good. I had done civil and criminal, and I don't know, my experience leaving civil, not great. And I was like, what am I doing? May as well just go make some money. No one else cares about society. Why should I? And it was right about the time that I was feeling so, just forlorn and despondent. I got that call from Britton Brooks. And if someone offers you an opportunity to affect an entire county, my mother is buried in Grayson County. It's part of my heritage. I don't know how you can say no. For me to say no to that would have been very, I don't know, selfish or something. So, I believe in saying yes. And I also believe that when you don't know what to do, wait. And something will
present itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Timing is really everything in life, right? And I think that's great advice. If the timing's not right, it doesn't matter how good it looks on its face or what you're doing if the timing is off, and you usually know, right? And so I think that's great advice, just to kind of wait and kind of make sure it's right.
I think I heard that. I think it was like Carolyn Miss and Oprah, Carolyn Miss, MYSS. They have like a little YouTube clip, and they say, when you don't know what to do, remain still. And so I had to remain still for a little while, and then I accepted this job, giving it absolutely no thought. Basically, I was like, deal. right there at lunch.
That's amazing. So, I mean, you are an amazing trial lawyer that's had so much experience. What advice could you give young lawyers who've just graduated or are thinking about doing criminal law or even civil law, how to, build their experiences and credibility as soon as possible?
I mean, I don't think you can beat public sector for fresh out of law school. Going to the DA's office, going to the public defender's office, if there is one, those are great. I mean, really excellent opportunities to learn how to try a case. But it was so hard to get in a trial in civil, this, and I'm finding it's almost as hard in criminal. I mean, we've got to really start nurturing our jury system because everyone acts like it's, such an intrusion on their time or such a pain and, this, that, and the other. But it is everything in America, everything. And
yeah, we're so lucky that we have that, and most folks don't realize just that our system allows for jurors to decide things as opposed to a judge.
Texas, we've got pretty good rules. Even the state has the right to a jury trial. Now, the defendant still gets to choose whether the jury or the judge decides its punishment. I wish my children had a say in that. Frankly, I wish my children had any of the rights the defendants enjoy. Presumption of innocence sure would be nice for a 5-year-old child testifying, but
let me ask you that, because as a prosecutor, it's such a heavy weight to make sure that, and especially given the division that you are running now, I mean, it's really important that defendants get a fair trial, right? I mean, it is chief among the things that make us Americans.
Yeah.
And so weighing this awesome responsibility of having a child victim with facts and going forward, and you are criminally prosecuting somebody, right? Talk to us about what that's what is that like, just having to balance all of those awesome responsibilities?
The worst thing is to have to retry a case. I don't know if you've ever had to do it, but oh my God, that is the worst thing. So you definitely have to make sure that the record is protected, that, the defendant knows everything he needs to know, that his lawyer's being effective. I mean, you really got to kind of be a second set of eyes. Especially in these cases, you tend to have visiting judges. So the state really has to be buttoned up on the facts and the procedures. And we the DA just hired a dear friend of mine who was my court partner to be chief of appellate. And so he's going to be doing CAC cases with me as well as watching my back, because I don't like being in the courtroom without a law and motions person or an appellate person to have my back, because I'm wielding the energy of the pain and the jury, and it's a lot to also know the law as specifically as sometimes you need to.
Yeah, we love our appellate lawyers.
Yes,
we do.
But what I found is that there's a big gap. When you think about the Constitution, all of these were, our system was designed before women had the rights, to vote, to buy land, to serve on juries. And so you can see how it's weighted very heavily in favor of protecting the defendant. Whereas we have children who are the most innocent of all, who are perpetrated upon near constantly, it seems to me. And they don't have very many rights at all. Like, I got a 9-year-old case I'm dealing with. Like, wouldn't it be nice if the child survivor had a right to speedy trial that the judge had to consider? Or that the jury's given an instruction, this person is testifying, they're presumed innocent. You're not allowed to have a bias that says they're a whore or that this child asked for it. You have to start them off on the same playing field as you do the defendant if he chooses to testify. You can see from certain rules of evidence that it's prime ground. Like, there are very favorable rules of evidence for children who testify. 38, 37, there's hearsay exceptions for the outcry witness. it's like the legislature wants to help these cases as much as they can, but I do think we need to take it a little bit further in the victims' rights, because the defendants are really calling the shots, and it is taking someone who has already been powerless during the act of their own abuse and making them powerless in the court system too. And as much as I want to protect the rights of the defendant, I want some more fairness for my babies.
Yeah.
And they're all my now.
I find myself telling victims that all the time in civil or criminal cases, is that truly as a victim, you really can't start to heal and move on until the trial's over, right? And so I can't imagine a 9-year-old case in a division like that. I mean, that just seems insane.
It is insane. It is insane. And it is a part of their healing. And what I'm trying to do now, because there are things that I can't control, like the 9-year-old case, like, how do we create an opportunity for this person to heal outside of an actual jury trial? Okay, well, maybe we'll start working on your victim impact statement together, really working through it. And it's me talking to them, like, what is this feeling about? Why do you think you had that thought when this was happening? Or, what do you want to happen to him? Just figuring out other ways to use the system wherever we are right now to move the ball forward in their healing. Because I cannot be a party to systemic oppression. And it kind of feels like you are when you're dealing with a 9-year-old case. I got myself into a little hot water in court a couple weeks ago. I was just so fed up. I was like, what difference does it make? I'm like, what more can you do to me? It's a 9-year-old case. Like, what are you going to take it out on me? Like, there's nothing more you can do. Like, they've already suffered basically the worst outcome I've ever seen in criminal court.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to kind of find any little opportunity you can to help this person heal a little bit.
Do you
It's
have
a problem if their trial takes too long? It's a huge problem.
in that county, JoDee? Do they have resources that you're able to provide to victims? Like, do you have certain, I don't know, counseling services or something like that you can refer
Yeah.
some of these victims to in the county?
We're very blessed. We have the most talented and empathetic victims assistance coordinator in Grayson County. I love her so much. And that's a statutory position. I think every DA's office is supposed to have a victims assistance coordinator. The Victims Bill of Rights, I believe, was passed in the early 90s. And without that, I cannot even imagine what it would look like. Because at least there's some infrastructure. It, like everything else in Texas, we kind of need to update things a little quicker than 40 years. But maybe we'll get there. The children's advocacy centers in Texas are really the most important piece of the puzzle in terms of providing services, coordinating strategy. I don't know. In fact, I looked to see if there was one in Grayson County before I accepted the job. I did do that because I said, if there's no CAC, I got no prayer, and I'm not going to walk into a situation where I know it can't be done. But there is a CAC. They're really great. I'm always grateful for the CACs. If I could raise $1 gajillion for these organizations, I would. I mean, they're everything.
Children Advocacy Center, for anybody that's wondering what CAC means.
The Children's Advocacy Center. It's a little confusing because I'm all on Crimes Against Children, also CAC. So my boss Kermit was like, maybe we should call ours DACAC. I said, okay, DACAC. DACAC.
Is that something different? Is CASA different is CASA totally separate and apart from that?
CASA is a totally separate nonprofit from a
totally
state.
Separate. So one interesting thing about the cases that I work on is quite often there are parallel CPS cases. CPS is colloquial, used to be called that. Now it's Texas Department of Family and Regulatory Services. But we work pretty closely together, especially in the early days when kids are being removed, from abusive homes or trying to find guardians for them. Apparently all of conservatorship in Texas has gone into private, a private company. So I think everyone's still kind of trying to figure that out. But yeah,
Yeah,
They,
I was a CASA volunteer for a very long time, but I remember many times being really disappointed with the prosecutors or the court-appointed lawyers. I think for not utilizing CASAs more, right? Like it's the one person involved in the child's life that is an actual volunteer and not being paid for their time and there because they want to be. And I was always a little disappointed that some of the lawyers in the case weren't really utilizing that resource.
yeah, I mean, I know when I was in Collin County, Judge Cynthia Wheelis presided over most of those cases. And I remember I'd go in sometimes and there were CASA, I mean, if the court chooses to rely on the CASA, they are extremely helpful. In fact, I have a CASA volunteer who's been coming up with one of my girls on my 9-year-old case. And she's not even in CASA anymore. I mean, that's how much these people care.
Yeah.
I really don't know how the CPS court system would function without them because they're key, they're important, and they provide a really, precious service.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that. That is a lot of time, a lot of work, and I applaud anyone who does that.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's just working on the cases like you're doing. It's hard to do. It's hard to really is hard to see how much evil there is in the world.
Oh, it's got to be really hard.
Yeah. Well, I guess, just kind of wrapping up a little bit. It's 2025. It's the beginning of 2025, and we've had a few episodes coming into this year just focusing on our goals, our aspirations, how we keep those goals going. I guess tell us a little bit about what your plans are, your goals are for this year, and what you've been doing to keep them going in February and on.
Gosh, my goal is to have an Excel spreadsheet with all my cases on it. I mean, it sounds really basic, but I literally have to do manual input to make this happen from like actual files in my office. And so, yeah.
No disco? No disco?
No disco, not here. Though I do have my cup. I do. Man, if I could have a database with all my stuff, a disco database.
Yeah. Disco's a discovery database that we use in civil all the time. So we got to figure out something that works for you, JoDee.
Yeah. Well, I like the fact that the goal is just, it doesn't sound like an easy goal by any means, but it's very tangible, right? It is literally data into a spreadsheet.
Data entry.
Sometimes we kind of feel too lofty with our goals, or they're a little bit more abstract. And those goals are important too, for sure. But sometimes it's like, nope, I just need this data into the system.
Well, I've got those too. Actually, there are silver linings to the situation I'm in. The DA and the CAC rebooted the Child Fatality Review Board a couple weeks ago. So that's a required position that I guess has been, a little bit defunct over the past several years. But I have a case where I have an infant homicide and I need to take it to the board. Like, sorry, I can't make every decision on my own. And I would really like to have a report to show the grand jury that I've, run it through fire and police and all these other professionals. So we got that started. And then we're talking about doing a CAC court with a visiting judge in the big old courthouse for a week every month. And how we're going to structure a docket and how cases are going to roll from one trial setting to the next so that we don't have any other 9-year-old cases ever again. So we have some really totally doable, not asking for a ton, but I'm going to have to ask for something. But of course, all that comes after I get my list, because right now I don't even really know what I'm working with.
Well, you're doing such important work. It's so nice to have you on. It's so good to see you. And thanks for sharing some of this just really, really important work that you are doing.
Thank you.
And tell us when your book's coming out, Outcry Witness. Where can they find it, and when is it going to be released?
Yeah, so it should be in September. I have a publisher, Stony Creek Publishing. Honestly, it was my outcry. I have survived. I am also a survivor and had never gone to the police, never did a civil case, never really told anybody aside from some strategic disclosures that I made in the event I ever wanted to report. So my outcry was literally my approach to my publisher. And at one point I thought it was deleted and off my Google Drive. And I was like, oh my God, that's when I realized that my publisher was my outcry witness. So anyways, I recovered the file and we all went on from there, but it's going to be a really manageable piece of content that gives folks very specific, small baby steps they can take to begin the process of saying the thing that is basically ruining their life. Keeping all this trauma bottled up and holding these secrets for people, especially bad people who don't deserve it, is quite literally killing Americans. Like, so many of these drug and alcohol problems are, from Body Keeps the Score. It's medicating sexual abuse trauma. And if we could get some of that released from our psyche on the whole as Americans, then we might get back on the moon. We might do something great with humanity. But if we keep things the way they are, it seems the path is not super great.
Well, it sounds like that book is going to be very important for anybody working on these types of cases and anybody that's been a victim, right? Or anybody that wants to understand a victim.
Yeah. Let us know when it's going to be released and we'll have you back on again. We'll
good idea.
So my manuscript is due May 31st and we're almost halfway through it. Like I've got a ghostwriter, we're cranking. And so working on that has been, it's like I do the rapes during the day and then I come home and I write about rapes at night. It's somehow working.
Well, we definitely want to hear more about that, and that'll be for another episode to come. So thank you so much, JoDee, for coming on.
Yeah.
Really,
thank you, JoDee.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to see your beautiful faces and all of your gifts to humanity. Thank you.
Well, and JoDee, we're just right out here beside each other, so we got to do lunch or something because we're basically I'm in your backyard because I'm here in Sherman and you're at the courthouse. Or I could scoot over there to Pottsboro.
I had no idea. I thought you were in Rockwall.
No, we bought a house in Sherman in October.
Girl.
Yeah. So I'm right here. Yeah. So we're going to get together. I feel like things are starting to slow down. It's been really busy, but things are starting to slow down.
All right. Well, thank you for everything. And we will hopefully see you in person next time.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thanks again for having me. And thank you, Santa, for all your sweet coordination.
I will tell her thank you.
Thanks, JoDee.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Ladies in Law. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to shake things up in law and business. Don't forget to hit subscribe and let us know what you think. Spread the word and share this podcast with your network. Follow us on socials for all the behind-the-scenes fun and sneak peeks of upcoming episodes. Until next time, keep rocking it, keep breaking the mold, and as always, keep aspiring to inspire.